7 o'clock, and we've started. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the January 13, 2025 Astro Cafe. I am the host this evening, and let's just get a list of people who are going to speak. We have our guest speaker, Kathryn Whitney. There's going to be a consortium talking about last night's observing session at the Victoria Centre Observatory. David Lee has a Japanese curiosity to share. Kirsten's going to talk about an Egyptian solar eclipse trip. I'm going to talk about the conjunction, which we didn't get to see this evening. Chris, are you going to talk about something? Chris Gainor.
The event that didn't happen?
The event that didn't happen. Oh, I guess I'll say something about it. Sure.
Lauri, do you have anything?
Maybe just a quick star party lineup. That's it.
And then there'll be various announcements, but I think we should get right on with the special treat of the evening. And Margie, can you introduce our speaker?
I would love to. Our speaker is Kathryn Whitney. Kathryn, interim artistic director of Ensemble Laude, which is a 60-voice, high-caliber choral performance group for women. Kathryn is a singer, an artistic director, a voice teacher, a choral clinician, a musicologist, and an arts entrepreneur. She presents the world with a wide variety of musical expertise. In 2020, she founded and continues to conduct Sing the North, an online community choir of singers from around the world. Additionally, she is actively engaged with 5 other arts organizations, geographically ranging from Victoria to the University of London, England. At Oxford University, Kathryn was a lecturer in music history and aesthetics, with concurrent teaching appointments at Cambridge and the Royal Academy of Music, London. A champion of new music, Kathryn has sung the world premieres of more than 50 compositions. Above all, Kathryn loves working with amateur singers as a conductor, a voice coach, and a maker of musical projects. Please welcome to Astro Cafe, Kathryn Whitney.
Thank you, Margie. That was very nice. Hi, everybody. I'm really pleased to be here tonight. I want to say big thanks to Margie for that kind introduction. Special thanks to Brian Barker. I'm not sure if Brian is here, but is he there with you? Yes. Oh, there you are. Hi, Brian. Yeah. Thank you so much to Brian, who attended the concert that we're going to talk about. It took place on the 14th of December, and there's a second version that's taking place on the 25th of January. Brian came up afterwards. He was there and just said he enjoyed it and would like me to address the group. So thank you, Brian. I'd also like to say thanks to Randy for his help in advance. I'm so pleased to be able to be here as interim artistic director of Ensemble Laude. It was founded by Elizabeth McIsaac about 20 years ago, and Elizabeth is taking a well-deserved sabbatical year, and I'm the lucky person who gets to take the reins of this wonderful choir for a year. When I had that choice to do that, or that opportunity to do that, I thought to myself, well, what can I do with these beautiful voices? I've listened to them for so long. They have such a superb, light, bright, ethereal kind of sound. And I thought, well, especially going into the winter months when the sky gets dark, wouldn't it be wonderful to try to bring out some of that brightness in their voices in a concert that is themed around the stars? And so for that, my concert Stars was born. I'm just going to show, if I could share there it is. I'm just going to share my screen and show you what our images look like. So here's from our website. The concert is called Stars. There's our beautiful star imagery. You can see there's a second concert taking place. I'm not sure how big that is. 25th of January at 2 p.m. And that's at St. Dunstan's Church in Gordon Head. 2 p.m. St. Dunstan's Church. You can get tickets on Eventbrite. So I had this idea to do some stargazing with the choir. So it started with the sound of their voices, but it was also something that I wanted to do where I thought, one of the things about this time of year, essentially from the beginning of the dark period, in different parts of the world, of course, it starts at different times, but I'd say November through to the end of January, maybe February, the days are shorter, the night looms large, doesn't it? And as it looms large, it imposes itself on us in a way that we don't normally experience through the rest of the year. Perhaps for all of you as stargazers, you spend a lot of time with the night sky, but I think for most people, when the day gets short and the night gets long, what people do is they go inside and switch the lights on, as soon as it starts to get dark. They go inside and I thought to myself, well, this time of year, if you don't do that and you go outside and you expose yourself to that darkness, what kind of things would you experience? What would you feel if you were doing that? And the more you start to think about that in musical terms, of course, it allows you to turn your eye and your ear, and in our case, our voices, to a really special kind of music, most of which is written at this time of year. Not coincidentally, I don't think that some of this really rich, dark, deep music comes from people's imagination just when the night sky looms. We get very philosophical at this time. If you really spend your time looking up and looking at the stars, you start to think about bigger questions of our origins, questions of creation, questions of the universe. And there's a lot of beautiful music that reflects that. So I kind of came up with this idea of my program Stars that Ensemble Laude are singing as a result of just this time of year. So I'm really excited to be able to tell you about this stargazing that we're doing in musical terms. Just a little bit about the structure of the concert. The first thing we do is we look up at the night sky and we see the aurora. So the first piece that starts the program is a piece called Aurora by Nicholas Fairbank. And I'm just going to share my screen and just play a little bit of this piece. Nicholas Fairbank is a composer from Victoria. Some of you may know him or have sung some of his music. Fantastic. So this is Aurora, and it's one of the movements from a larger piece called Isbjorn or Ice Bear that Nick premiered at Christchurch Cathedral a number of years ago. Here's the first little bit of this. Hope you can hear us. Oop. Hang on. I'm not sure why that's happening. There we go. So those are the first sounds that you'll hear. That's from Aurora by Nicholas Fairbank. That opens our concert. So once we've looked up to the night sky, the music then moves past you in 3 stages. In the first stage, we think about the origins of life, or the origins of creation, or a creation story that comes from the stars. Now, in a way, we can talk about that later. In a way, this comes from a mistake of transcription. And that's a footnote to history. But in the first section, we hear music about Maris Stella, or the Star of the Sea. That's to say the Virgin Mary. So we hear music from Hildegard of Bingen, the O Quam Mirabilis, which talks about the first breath of life and praises the Creator. We think of her as the Star of the Sea, and as I say, that's part of a translation error, but never mind. And then we hear a number of other pieces from the Middle Ages and the early Renaissance that explore the theme of the creation coming from the Virgin Mary, or the Virgin Mary's version, her as the origin of life. One of the pieces that we're performing there is called Alma Redemptoris Mater, in a setting by Palestrina. And I'll play you just the first little bit of that, where we get to hear her referred to as the Star of the Sea. The first words are Alma Redemptoris Mater, que pervia celi porta manes et stella maris, or O loving Mother of our Savior, mankind's ready entrance into heaven and Star of the Sea. So here's the first few bars of Alma Redemptoris Mater. So that's the centerpiece of the first half of our program, where we sing of the Virgin Mary as the Star of the Sea. After we hear about the Mother, the Star Mother, we then move on to the second section of our program, which starts with a wonderful piece by the Cree composer Andrew Balfour. This is called Anung, which is star in Ojibwe. And in this section, we start off with Andrew, and then we move into a number of pieces that are about children as stars, things that we look to, origins of life or the beginning of life. I'm going to read just the little piece of information that Andrew Balfour has at the bottom of his score about this piece Anung. To put it in his words, it's quite small text and I've made it big, but if you can see right down at the bottom of the score, Andrew writes, Anung, a star, is dedicated to my wonderful wife, who told me about the indigenous understanding of the star people who are among us, representing where we all came from, the universe and the stars. Only some can see them, the star people, among them little children who attract the star people as the little ones have just emerged from the unknown. Star people are also attracted to shells, which is why you might see shells in some indigenous ceremonies. Those are by Andrew Balfour. I think it's an absolutely wonderful idea. You do see that in small children, right? There's something otherworldly about them. They're not quite of our world yet. And I just love that explanation. So this is a little bit of the piece Anung by Andrew Balfour. They're whispering, Anung, a star. I'm just going to jump to the end so you can hear this wonderful section where the stars start glistening. That's Anung by Andrew Balfour. That's published by Cypress Choral Music in Vancouver. He's originally from Winnipeg, but now lives in Toronto. That starts the second part of our program, after which we hear a number of pieces, some of them from Norway, some of them from Canada, that talk about children, as I say, as these sort of origins or the bearers of the origins of life. And then we move into the final part of our program, which is a single 5-movement work by the Canadian composer Sarah Quartel called Snow Angel. And in this piece, it's a wonderful piece. If you don't know it, I encourage you to listen to the whole thing. It's difficult to just play excerpts of all of these amazing pieces. But we hear in Snow Angel, it's a combination of music and narration. And the narrators are angels who have come down from the stars. So the piece says in the second movement, we hear the line, when earth lay nearer to the skies and mortals saw without surprise angelic eyes gazing on the earth. That's when we saw the origins of ourselves. I'm just going to play you the last part of this piece, Snow Angel. This is from the final movement, Snow Angel. So winter shelters life. That brings me back to where I started with the idea of the night sky drawing our eyes and our thoughts, our imagination to the heavens, to our origins, and to those things beyond our understanding. I hope that you enjoyed hearing a little bit about our program and that you might come and hear us on the 25th of January. We're starting at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Lots of time for you to be stargazing that night because our concert's an afternoon concert. You can still see the stars. It's at St. Dunstan's Church in Gordon Head. Thanks very much for your time.
Lovely.
Thank you very much, Kathryn. I have tickets for the next concert, and it's certainly compelling to want to hear that music. Thank you.
Thank you, Margie.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of our time together here, or you may have other duties as a musician, and that will be fine too if you decide that you need to do those things.
Sure,
It
thanks.
looks like we have some questions. Gary.
Wow, that sounded amazing. I'm certainly going to get tickets. Now, is there any way we can prepare ourselves ahead of time to better take it in and understand what they're saying?
You know, when we hear things on videos, often the words are not very clear. But Ensemble Laude has such superb diction that I don't think you're going to have so much trouble hearing us in person. You know, I'd be very happy to send a list of the pieces so you can look them up online and see what the texts are for them. Be happy to do that. I can send that to Randy afterwards and circulate those if you want to take a look at the lyrics.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
See, there's another hand, but I don't know who it is.
Well, there's Gary and Brian.
Gary and Brian.
Oh, now Brian.
Brian.
Okay, yeah. Good to see you again, Kathryn. Thanks for sharing that again. And I do encourage people to get out to hear the music live because it's so much better in surround sound and literally celestial, and it's fine. Well, I'm not aware of it like a kind of a genre as in choral or classical music specific to the stars or space. How did you go about selecting these particular pieces, and what drew? Well, very moving pieces, but how did you go about selecting the pieces for the program?
Oh, thanks for that question. You know, as I said at the beginning, I really started with the sounds of this particular choir. So I'm a bit on borrowed time with them because I'm there for this year while Elizabeth McIsaac is on sabbatical. And I really wanted to try to create a program that allowed us to go through the different colors that this particular choir can make. You know, what's unusual about them? Well, it's treble voices, so sopranos and altos singing together. It means that we can achieve all sorts of different types of brightness with the sound. We can play with acoustics when we're playing with vowels and try to bring out a really different sort of range of colors that you can't have when you're using all four voices, tenor, alto, soprano, and bass together. Another rich sound, beautiful sound, but it's a different kind of sound. So I started with that, and then I thought, well, and I had my theme. I wanted it to be about stars and this night sky. And then I, went through a lot of the music that I love, that I've heard the choir sing before. So it's significant that the first section is all early music. Ensemble Laude started off as a choir that sang primarily medieval music, even though they now sing a lot of world music and popular 20th century contemporary music. It started off that way, and that's where I first heard them. So that was something that I thought we could do. And of course, if you go back into the Middle Ages, there's these beautiful texts all about the heavens. Then in the second part, I wanted it to be contemporary and to lead on from Andrew Balfour's piece, which I knew because I'd sung it with, we've recorded it with Sing the North, and also because I've sung it with my other in-person choirs here in Victoria. And from that, I thought there's a number of different pieces about children. So you just do a lot of listening, going through things, thinking about what kind of pace you might get. And then in the end, the composer Sarah Quartel has a very special relationship with Ensemble Laude. They've commissioned her a number of times. We're actually pursuing another commission with her just now, which we believe will be ready for 2026, when the big choral conference podium comes to Victoria. And so I thought it would be wonderful to be able to feature her. That piece, Snow Angel, is rarely performed, and it was just a really great opportunity to think about this time of year and bring that make that be the conclusion to our concert about the stars.
Lovely. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathryn,
Yes, Randy.
I'm going to do kind of a big question. As you know, this is an amateur astronomy crowd. We tend to discuss things on this, there's this boundary that we put between arts and science. We tend to be on the science side. And yet when I look around at the crowd here, there are so many people who are very passionate about the arts. Dave and I are both in choirs. Jim Hesser is a fixture in the music scene. Margie is a visual artist, and Miles is a guitarist. And there's many more in this crowd that are passionate on both sides of this divide. But I'd love to know what you would say about how we ended up in this world where we place this separation between art and science. For somebody who personally, I get so much joy on both sides. It fills my soul.
Yeah. Well, I'm the daughter of two scientists. My father is an entomologist and my mother's a marine biologist. Both, and so I definitely had a lot of that sort of influence around me growing up. I think if you know scientists, you know that the core of what they do is profoundly creative. And I think that for people who don't have that kind of contact, I think you think of science as a bunch of rules, and people reviewing rules, making more rules. But on the contrary, science is full of creativity. It's only through flights of fancy that we know any of the things that we know. Some of them flights of fancy that were received, right? Some of the most extraordinary things that have happened in the history of science have happened by inspiration. Right. So I think it's right to think of science as in its origins creative and as a very generative thing, something that is constantly showing us insights, but also as a result of those insights, helping us create the world, helping us to find ways of understanding the world. We can only know something if we can speak about it, if we have words for it, if we have a formula to describe it, or if we have, a way of seeing it, a way of mapping the stars. So I think that's part of it. I think we need to understand science truly as a creative endeavor. But I think also that, I just can't imagine anyone doing something like looking at the night sky and not losing themselves in some of the biggest questions that we can possibly have. Music comes to our aid. The arts in general come to our aid. I think music especially is quite mysterious in its workings, but it comes to our aid when we look at the night sky and we find no answers. We search for reasons, or we search for modes of understanding or ways of expressing what we're feeling. And I think that we turn to things like music to help us to understand those things. So I think that we can see the science and the arts as really one and the same thing. Arts and sciences, I know they're separated in faculties. We have the arts faculty, the science faculty. We tend to separate them, but I do think that they complement one another. They're the two sides of ourselves. But I think if you know them well, they really are one and the same thing. That's
Spectacular answer. Very good. Lauri's up there.
Hi, Lauri.
Right. Sorry, I put myself out. Thank you, Kathryn. I was actually going to say that you bridged that of somewhat divide beautifully tonight. Thank you. I'm totally inspired. I want to know where and whether or not behind you or behind the choir there will be visuals like you had for the aurora, and where you got the visuals from.
So in St. Dunstan's, will there be an audiovisual aspect to the performance? Is that the question?
Yeah, or a visual performance like you had at the beginning with the aurora.
There won't be images of the aurora except those that you bring in your own imagination.
Okay.
There will definitely be inspiration coming from the sounds. I think,
Okay.
the sound itself will speak volumes and just create wonderful skyscapes for you throughout our hour and a half together.
Thank you. I just wasn't sure whether that was going to be there, because that is where arts and science go together as well.
They do.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Multimedia.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
I just came in, Kathryn, and so I'm a bit late, but your last comments struck a note. My father was a scientist, a research scientist in microbiology, and he told me quite proudly and often that good science was just like the arts because it was creative. Good science is creating the right questions.
Mm-hmm.
So very, very much they are allied.
I agree. I agree. You know, I would see my father at work, and he would just be sitting at the table looking at, he was an entomologist, worked on the mountain pine beetle, and he would just be looking at a Petri dish with a little bug in it for hours.
Yeah, I can beat you. My father was a microbiologist and he looked at viruses and bacteria, even smaller. So he never understood what he was doing, actually, my whole childhood, but obviously he did it well. Anyway,
Yeah,
creativity is right there.
I agree with you. I agree. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. That was
Thanks, Randy.
inspiring. Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
So I think what we should go on now is to actually talk about a night when the sky was clear and hear what the crowd did up at the Victoria Centre Observatory last night. So David is going to bring up the Zenfolio pictures. And can I ask you, Reg, to kind of summarize the session?
Oh, gee, I've not prepared for this. I'll see where
You've already written the email. Just
Oh, I did, yeah.
it's the same thing.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
At any rate, we had the inaugural session of the Victoria Centre Observatory for 2025 last night, and we had 9 rascals up on the hill. 2 elected to go set up scopes near the plastic dome, and the rest clustered around our beloved Victoria Centre Observatory. And here's a picture of it. And all these photos were taken by Wyman Lee, and I was absolutely amazed because a lot of the photos, he made it look like it was daytime there. I don't know what sort of cameras he's using, but it's just extraordinary. And it was a lot of fun. The moon was so bright that I got a severe case of moonburn afterwards. I'll be ending with that, but I think I'll pull through. Here's a picture of David at the controls and CJ on the right, and I think that's Chris there.
That's me, yeah.
And the interesting thing is, well, we had a computer problem, and to put it in focus, when you have really bright moon, it prevents you from enjoying the fainter objects in the sky. And we were relegated to look at brighter objects. And it just so happened we had the whole suite of planets from Venus. I think it was Neptune.
Yeah.
Neptune.
No.
We have a tragic episode. We'll go into that if David Lee forgives me for divulging some of the.
No, I also, before you hear Reg's version of the story, we were never in danger.
At any rate, so we had them all lined up in the sky, and it was really quite exciting. And I thought, gee, we've got this really good Takahashi refractor. We're going to go and enjoy and looking at each one in sequence. And so David had spent a lot of time configuring our new computer up there, and it's very complicated software to transfer over. So the first thing we did is we honed our instrument, we got everything right, now everything was beeping correctly in that. And so David says, let's slew to Venus because it was quickly setting on the horizon. Well, the telescope had bad numbers in it, and it thought Venus was kind of below the horizon itself. And the telescope went lower and lower and lower, and then I screamed, and David immediately pushed the pace, the space bar, and stopped everything, or else havoc would have struck. So I'm forever indebted to the rapid response from David Lee for saving that. And first of all, we kind of guessed what the problem was and everything like that. And then I got quite ridiculed for looking at the manual, and they suggested we use this thing called synchronize, and we could synchronize a particular star with the scope. And magically everything started to work, and we continued our journey. By that time, both Venus and Neptune had departed the scene, so we didn't see those. And I was spiritually crushed by that, but he carried on anyway. And so I think the next one we tried was probably Saturn. And then the highlight of my night was going to see Uranus. Uranus was discovered by Herschel in this garden in Bath. And 2 years ago, I was in the very backyard, the garden in Bath, where he discovered Uranus. And I saw this pale little blue dot, a pretty colored blue light, but pale, and it was disc-shaped. It wasn't a star. And it's just amazing that without photography, without fancy computers and sort of stuff, he was able to find this thing. Yeah, he had tremendous ability, and that meant a lot for me to see that then. And then we went and hopped over and saw Mars, which was pretty good, and ended the night on Jupiter. And Jupiter, we cranked her up to about 200 power. And first of all, the Galilean moons were in a really particular weird shape. They're almost formed a triangle rather than a line there for a bit. But you could clearly see really nice bands. So these 12 horizontal bands across the moon, the Jupiter, and it was really, really special. And once we exhausted our planets, a lot of people headed for home. But CJ, David, and I went and looked at the moon. And the moon at near full moon does not get any respect at all. It's kind of the Rodney Dangerfield.
Even I don't like watching the full moon.
But we looked at, let's look at this edge, the very edge of the moon, and you can see these craters, and they look terrific. And we brought it up to about 200 power, and we really enjoyed it. You could see all these weird shadows on it, and they were changing fairly rapidly. So if anybody has some time, don't throw away your opportunity to look at the edge of the moon, at any rate. So we basically started off kind of in a scary situation, and then at the end we were quite triumphant due to various achievements of trying to troubleshoot stuff and everything like that. And it was a delightful evening, and we had a lot of fun. But we have some other pictures of Mike Webb looking through his short refractor, and it had a nice wide field. And despite the moon, we had a lovely view of the Pleiades, and I really enjoyed seeing that because they look like jewels, and it was beautiful in there. At any rate, it was a great way to start 2025. And we were forced off the hill by dew starting to show up on all of our eyepieces and everything like that. And just before 11 o'clock, we sadly shut down everything and headed home. But it was a great start. And I thank all of the people who joined us up there. And in particular for Wyman capturing all of our memories with the beautiful photographs. So I've said probably more than enough, but there we go.
And just to mention, I mean, some of those visual scenes out on the deck of Mike Webb there, I mean, it looks like it's daylight, right? It was quite amazing what that camera could capture.
Also, we had the aid of lots of moonlight.
Yes.
So, Reg, you were burned and crushed and flooded in the end.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think it was a whole arc of emotions. But I'm a better person for it now. There you go.
What was the scene like?
I would say it was pretty good, actually. We looked at the surface of Jupiter, and you could definitely see the bands. You see color as well, and I would say the satellites were fairly stable. I mean, there was a little bit of blurring, but it was pretty nice. Pretty
What
nice.
about Mars?
Mars, not so bad. It's not perfect, but I mean, it was not too bad either. I don't know. Did anybody spend a lot of time with Mars that evening?
I was disappointed that Mars was more peachy shaded rather than blood red.
Mm.
So that was quite unacceptable. But other than that, I could not see any features on Mars. I didn't see any canals or anything like that. So it was, we're very close to the opposition. I think it's 16 arc seconds in diameter, and it's worthy of going to have a closer look again if the opportunity shows up. But
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
One of
absolutely.
the problems last night was it was so close to the moon too. I think it was getting really flooded with moonlight.
yeah,
But look at that picture. I mean, you can see
Wow.
Orion there above the dome,
In daylight, in pure
but it looks
daylight.
like daylight, doesn't it?
Yeah. Actually, Kirsten, could you, or is Kevin online as well, or could you give
Kevin's
us
in the
a?
room here with us.
Oh, okay. Could you guys give us a read on what was happening up on the parking lot?
Well, it felt-
Sure.
Right.
Kevin, did you, I'm happy to go first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Kevin and I set up in the parking lot, and we discovered pretty quickly that the moon was just, it was so dominant. I mean, that picture actually it's incredible. I mean, I'm assuming that beautiful light on the dome is from the moon.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful picture. I did get the nebula, the Orion Nebula, in my scope at one point, and it was very washed out. I mean, I could recognize that it was the nebula, but it was just there was so much light that it was just not really even that very clear. The Pleiades, however, looked amazing. They were fabulous in the scope. We got some great views of Venus and Saturn. Um, I was too lazy. I had a 36 millimeter wide field in my scope, and I was too lazy. It was too cold to change it down. So my view of Saturn, I could barely see the rings in the distance, and I'm like, yeah, it's still there. And then went and looked at Mars, and it was extremely bright and glowing, but yeah, it was beautiful to see Mars, actually. That was kind of one of the highlights in the Pleiades. And it was nice. Kevin, what were your kind of highlights?
Well, my highlight was realizing that I should check my equipment a little better before I go out for the first time this year. Because I grabbed the wrong spotting scope. I grabbed the one that was broken. Yeah. And so I was trying to operate my Mac at 180 without a spotting scope, which was painful, especially that bright a moon, because everything washed out.
Hmm.
And I didn't bother changing from my 30 millimeter eyepiece down to get anything into focus, because I really wasn't sure what I was looking at.
Yeah, that is a challenge when you have a long focal length scope, unless you have a good matching wide field eyepiece. You really kind of depend on your finder.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a few targets I was trying to locate like a few Messiers, but I discovered very quickly that even just, initial finder stars, like the stars that were visible in the sky because of the full moon, to even begin a star hop were so limited that I gave up on that idea pretty quickly. So just focused on the planets and the bright, pretty stuff in the sky.
That's the photo of this observatory was taken about 10 o'clock at night, handheld. I was actually stunned by how well it came out, actually.
Yeah,
Well,
it is.
Stars are excellent for
I
such
know.
Yeah, the Wyman's actually using a Z6. I have a early Z6 and a Z6 II, but the vibration reduction is just amazing, as well as iPhones as well. The fact that they stack. Now, the Z6 doesn't stack, but it's very good. Like you can hold it for quite a long time, actually, especially if you have a wide lens.
Yeah, yeah. And that's run through Topaz AI,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's quite amazing.
Yeah, all things are possible now.
Mm.
Yeah, that's an amazing
I'm
show.
so glad that you guys got the observatory open. Congratulations. I know there was a lot of stuff with that silly computer. So really pleased that we're up and running and looking forward to more of these sessions.
Yeah, actually, the timing wasn't too bad. You know, it was a downtime anyways, so we didn't really lose too much time actually.
Yeah. So I think my presentation is the right segue for now. So I'll take over the share.
Okay.
Let's do this. Share screen. Share. And come on. Oh, that's what I wanted. Go back. F5. Here we go. So last night the moon was washing out Mars, and had we lived in this tube here, we would actually see the moon going right in front of Mars. But in fact, we live around here. So had we had clear sky at 6:30, things would have been nice. This is a picture of the grazing lunar occultations in the handbook. And we live here, right? And so the only grazing occultation that comes close to us was this evening. It says January 14th. Why? Because that's universal time. We're 8 hours earlier, right? UT -8. So that puts it into the 13th. And so what you see here is the north limit and the south limit of the occultation. And there was a bit of discussion in the emails as we were getting ready for tonight, whether we're actually going to be in the occultation or not. And so I forget which publication I saw, but they had a KMZ file, which you can bring into Google Earth. And so you see that, here's Victoria, and there's the limit. We were just at the edge.
You could have swam out and seen it.
That's right, Leslie. So lazy, guys. Although it was cloudy down there too. Anyway, so the other thing is Mars is at opposition, which means, here's the sun, here's the Earth, and Mars is as close as it gets to the Earth. So Mars is nice and big. If you take a look, this is Damien Peach's time series. So this is a year. Well, it's probably 2 years. It takes 2 years from when the Mars is at opposition till when it's at opposition again, I believe. So this is going through that 2-year sequence from when it's on the other side of the sun to where we're on the same side of the sun. And so these are actual photographs that Damien Peach is one of the big Mars photographers out there. But you can see that it changes in size by what? That's about a factor of 3, 4. Anyway, it's as big as it can get. And so I took Stellarium and fixed Mars and took a screenshot of where it would be each 15 minutes this evening. So we would have seen it at 6:15 this evening, really close. But then there's 6:20, 6:25. Oh my goodness, 6:30. And then it starts moving away. 6:35, 6:40. So depends who you look at. If you look at Environment Canada, just the weather app, it says it's going to be cloudy this evening. But if you look at Clear Sky Victoria, then it says it's going to be clear. Oh, and incidentally, what's the guy's name? Attila somebody did Clear Sky?
Attila Danko.
Yeah, Danko. I heard in the actual astronomy podcast that he died last month or in November.
Yes.
But great service to the community. Anyway, I then blew up zoomed in the image. And look, Mars was closer to the surface of the Earth than Mars diameter. Isn't that remarkable?
Surface of the moon.
That would have looked really, really good.
Yeah.
I don't know. What would it look like in a telescope? Would you be able to see the dim?
Might be tough.
To see the dim planet behind the bright moon?
If you occulted the moon.
Yeah.
I think it would be
Better
I think it would be visible. The thing is, the moon is extremely bright, right?
Would
So
floating help, do you think? Or would it just dip the moon as well, I guess, or Mars?
Oh,
as
what's
well?
that? What's that? Mike's showing something. What are you showing?
It blinked out.
did he actually photograph it?
I just ran out before we started, and there was a thin spot in the cloud.
Ah, that's what I was hoping for.
You got it, Mike. That's fantastic. So do you have any way of actually getting that off your camera so that you can actually show it to us? Because all we see is a fuzzy screen.
No. See that?
Not well enough.
If I knew my way around a computer, I could probably do it, but I'll have it off tomorrow and I'll post it.
Okay,
That
that's
would be
great.
great.
Let's get that onto Zenfolio. That'd be great.
Thank you so much, Mike. That's what we were hoping for. That's what I have to share. That's it.
Just an observation too, from that image of Mars, assuming that was the orientation, it did look a little bit like that last night. It was very unclear, but that was where the dark kind of shadow on Mars was. That
Well, let me do that
I
again.
saw it.
Let me put that on again.
You think maybe there could have been some Mars dust storms?
Don't know.
Where did it go? Hello? Oh, I have to go like this.
Actually, when we had
that one there.
when we
So
had Mars in the Takahashi, you can definitely see the dark pattern on Mars.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was my recollection. It looked a bit like that. Not obviously.
Yeah.
nowhere was
I'm
clear.
I'm not sure if we saw the polar cap, but definitely the dark gray area. CJ, do you remember? Because when we were looking at it, I think I was saying, well, there's that funny shape, that gray shape on the face.
Yeah, we did see that. So, but I don't recall seeing the polar cap. What was that was the question you had, David?
Yeah, I don't remember seeing the polar cap, but
No, I don't
definitely the gray areas for sure.
Yeah, for sure. The pattern of the surface, we saw that. Yeah, for sure.
But it was quite indistinct. Was my, nothing like the sharpness of this.
Oh, no.
Oh, no,
This is processed, right? This is a processed
yeah.
image.
Well, and it's the one that's in stellarium, right?
Yeah, this is a stellarium, and I don't know how accurate they do the like. I don't know if they do the rotation of Mars or anything.
They seem to in other
I think they
apps,
do.
so
Yeah?
I think so.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, they do. They do, yeah.
I'm sure they got the moons in the right places.
Yeah, so the dark patch at the top is Syrtis Major.
Okay, you know it. Okay, that's
I
great.
just looked it up.
As for the timing, this looked to be the closest that it got. So at 6:31, there would be a mathematical way.
Yeah, I actually asked Sky Tools, which is my go-to for planning, and it said 6:30 basically. And I think it was like less than a quarter of a degree separation. So it was very, very tight.
How about that? Okay, that's what I had to share. Okay.
Randy, there's the
Yeah.
there's the clear scope. So it was showing no coverage, but transparency was very poor. So would that mean that the clouds that they're maybe low level clouds are fog versus?
Okay, so the first
Or is
thing
it because
I know
Mr.
that
Danko's-
Reg tells us never to use this app, although everybody does it.
Mhm.
But given that, how do you translate that transparency?
Well, I was always questioning transparency because there's so many different things that can cause it. Wildfire smoke is one in the news these days. There's jet contrails that are not predicted. They can screw things up. And there's a few other aspects that we do not have the ability or the input to predict. Another one is a volcanic ash. You can put that in there. So there, and particularly wildfire smoke is not embedded in our meteorological models, although there is a fire forecast model called smoke now where you can get access to it. They're not incorporated into our atmospheric model.
But the humidity, like high humidity.
Humidity is another big factor, and normally we calculate what's called precipitable water, the amount of water in the water column, and that is one of the inputs that they would use for this. But there is a really nice satellite product from University of Washington where they show the infrared satellite imagery for the West Coast and the visual satellite imagery, and then a thing called water vapor. And the water vapor has kind of got really peculiar and quite attractive colors to it, especially the greens are water. But there are dry zones that are kind of dark gray. And if you look at that, and that's going to be over your area that night, that is going to be a good area that will probably have fairly decent transparency if you don't have a wildfire going on or a volcano erupting and this sort of stuff, or jets flying over. So there you go.
Great.
University of Washington.
Yeah.
Someday you'll give your weather talk again, okay?
Okay.
There's a desire to accumulate sky meter observations that are well standardized to enable verification of the transparency forecast in the model. And I don't know where that project has gone or whether it was continued. Maybe it's too difficult to do, but do you remember anything about that, Reg?
No, I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
As I say, I was a transparency skeptic until Dave Payne made me a believer. So there you go.
Okay, let's have David Lee's Japanese Curiosity.
Okay, so there's a little bit of a story that goes along with this. As many of you know, my great niece is a poet, and she spends a lot of her time in Asia, especially Japan. So over the summer, she was in Kawasaki, and I would be telling her about these conjunctions. So this Mars lunar thing it kind of occurred, not as close as this, but it occurred back in December as well. And I remember telling everybody about it, and I thought, oh, drat, the weather's really terrible. We're not going to see this. And I was texting Leanne, and Leanne said, "You mean this?" So she sends me this picture of the moon over Kawasaki, and I I I shouldn't have done this, but I kind of corrected her. I said, "Well, Kawasaki," and I told her other things that were in the frame that she took. So I'm always teasing her that way. She sends me these beautiful pictures of the moon against Japanese landscape, and then I tell her all the other things that are in the sky. So I'm really a bad uncle. So, anyways, I mentioned that I was taking this urban sketching class, and I said, and I'm looking for this pen, this Fudo pen, which it's like a fountain pen, except the nib is bent. So that actually allows you to do thin and thick lines with the one tool, right? So she did go looking for this thing made by Sailor. It's one of these guys here. And it indeed has this bent nib. So I'm really looking forward to trying this guy out. But when I met her for lunch, she also got me this. And I think I'm going to ask Charles if he knows. Now, Leanne said that Sora means sky, but she said that the kanji underneath isn't isn't the sky. So I don't know. Uh, Brian, can you actually read the kanji?
Not with my eyes or
Okay.
or you're holding it steady, but yeah, maybe we can get together and I can give you or you
Yeah.
why don't you take a picture of it?
I could do
and
that.
Send it
I
to
could
me,
do
and if
that.
I can't interpret it, then my wife can.
Oh yeah. So it's quite beautiful. I mean, it's basically a lunar calendar, right? So
Yeah.
you can see this. It's pretty. And yeah, so that was kind of cool. That was a big surprise. I was expecting fountain pens. I wasn't expecting this little calendar. So
Nice.
yeah.
And you note that the holidays won't be the same as ours.
Uh, yeah, yes, of course. Of course. Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing, like the whole calendaring system, I realize is not the same as ours, as you say, Brian. And it's got me curious now, so I'm gonna have to see how they differ and things like that. But yeah, the other thing I thought was kind of cool was that Leanna and I were actually viewing the same thing, but she was way the heck over in Japan, and here I am looking at the same thing. So that's that same feeling of distance. We still see the same thing, so that was kind of cool. And I apologize profusely for telling her what else was in the frame, but that's okay. I can't help myself. Anyways, that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kirsten, tell us about the Eclipse tour that you were talking about, please.
Okay, sure. A few months back, can't remember quite how long ago it was now. I think maybe 4 or 5. I noticed that it was actually through the RASC Canada, RASC national website, like through their newsletters or updates that they send out electronically. They had a little blurb and a link to this company in New Brunswick called Cliff Valley Astronomy Adventures. And I forget what it was in the RASC newsletter that kind of, really drew me to this. But anyway, I clicked on the link, and what they were describing was a tour of in Egypt from and the dates are July 30th to August the 8th in 2027. It's a 10-day tour. And it starts in Cairo. So we all meet in Cairo on the 30th of July, and then it ends again in Cairo on the 8th of August. And I communicated with the CEO of Cliff Valley Astronomy. You guys probably even know this company or the CEO. His name is Stefan Picard. I gather he's a fairly well-known amateur astronomer in the RASC community. His company's in New Brunswick.
Yeah, Kirsten, I think he kind of had a little bit of publicity during the eclipse because he had organized some stuff on his property or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. They do a lot of domestic stuff as well as international adventures. I think RASC Canada actually worked directly with him on an event in New Brunswick on his property for the last I guess it was the last eclipse, major one in North America. But anyway, all of the information's on their website. But basically, it's a fully guided 10-day tour. There's like the cost includes it includes most of the meals, all of the bus transport, all of the attractions, and the entrance fees to the attractions, all the taxes, English-speaking tour guides, Egyptian, representatives will be accompanying, all of the tourists throughout the trip. So it's very well organized. The price of this is phenomenal, at least in my view. It also the price also includes like 3 domestic air trips, like little air travel hops from Cairo to Luxor, and then we board. It includes like I think we're on a Nile River cruise for about 6 days of the 10 days. And we board the ship in Luxor on day 3. And then we go down the Nile and do the river cruise part. And then we fly to Abu Simbel. And then we fly to Cairo again. So it includes all those little domestic flights. And each day is just packed with kind of pre-planned like attractions and all these wonderful things. The actual eclipse itself, so there's a full solar eclipse happening on August the 2nd. So that would be day 4 of the trip. So we're on the boat by then, or the Nile River cruise part. And we'll be in Luxor. The eclipse starts around 11:40 a.m. on August the 2nd in Egypt, in Luxor. And totality is around 1 p.m. and then it concludes by about 2:30. But what's interesting about this is the period of totality is about 6 minutes. So it's like a major duration, right? So I'm very excited about it. And the nice thing about it is Stefan Picard is personally coming on this tour. He will be organizing all of the astronomy related events. So it's not just, the daytime attractions, and there's all the things that we'll see, like the museums and the gardens and the Valley of the Kings and all that stuff. But at night, this Cliff Valley Astronomy Group is also organizing like photographic, like stargazing events, photographing like the Milky Way and the skies in Egypt and star parties and all that kind of stuff. So it's really cool. Like there's a whole astronomy element to this thing as well as the Egyptian thing. And the price of this, for all of this, for the deluxe accommodation, which is really nice. There's a deluxe category and a luxury category. But the deluxe is for one person, 69.50 Canadian. And then for double accommodation, it would be 10,750. And then for the luxury category, it's like 79.50 for one person. and then $12.50 for double accommodation. So that's really, I thought that was really good. So for me, I mean, I booked, myself for 69 for just under $7,000.
Kirsten, is
For
that Canadian dollars or US?
yeah, it is.
Canadian dollars. Wow.
Yes, yeah, it's Canadian.
Flight
So
included?
sorry?
No, it's
What?
Cairo to Cairo.
No,
Okay.
Cairo, you have to get to Cairo.
Yeah, you have to. So international flights. So from Canada to Egypt and then back, that's additional. So that's additional for sure. But considering that includes like pretty much everything, I don't know. I thought that was pretty good for $7,000. And then, if there's two people, you cut this 10,750 in half. I mean, that's pretty good. But anyway, he estimated there'd be about 30 people is kind of what he's aiming to have on in terms of the tour. If it were to exceed that, my understanding is that he was prepared to bring his staff and organize a whole separate group if necessary, if demand was there. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it, even though it's 2.5 years away.
Yeah. Hold your breath.
Yeah.
Kristen, I took a trip very similar to that in the ground component back in 2004, substituting a transit of Venus for the solar eclipse, and it really was an absolutely marvelous trip. It was very hot at that time of year. I was there in August also, and we were actually, for the transit of Venus, we were on Crocodile Island in the Nile, and we were at a resort which had a swimming pool. And so we thought, oh yes, it's going to be very hot, but we'll have a swimming pool. But the problem was the water in the swimming pool was above skin temperature. You go in the swimming pool and you heat up even more. So it turned out not to be.
Say there are crocodiles in it.
No, sharing with a crocodile.
But it was the trip. The trip is absolutely wonderful, and I would recommend that if you're going to go that long distance, you should stay certainly at least a few extra days to explore some things on your own, at least in Cairo. But anyway, good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's really, really good advice. I mean, you're right. I mean, for me, getting to Egypt is probably not something I'm going to be doing, I doubt, again. So maximizing the time there makes a lot of sense for sure.
What's the odds for the weather at the eclipse?
Good. I mean, August I mean, other than the heat, I mean, yeah, it's going to be like 40 degrees Celsius. It's going to be, I'm banking on the air-conditioned buses that are going to be kind of transporting us all over the place. But yeah, it's going to be hot, like 40 degrees, I expect. But August in Egypt, odds are really good. It's going to be clear and sunny. Yeah.
And I see Joe has put the link for this on the chat.
Cool. That sounds great. Thank you. Chris, you're on our screen already. So you were going to talk about something that we didn't do.
That didn't happen yesterday.
Something we didn't do well. I actually have a few random things to talk about.
Go for it.
The first thing I'll mention was that today Audrey and I were out driving around, and our travels put us a little south of the famous strip of billboards on the Pat Bay Highway, and so we're heading back home along this strip. And all of a sudden, and there's now some billboards that, they're big television screens and they can change what's on. And so all of a sudden, one of these things changed, and all it was a thing was kind of a graphic of the full moon and saying it was a full moon today. And I thought, God, Randy would have jumped out of the car if he'd have seen this.
That's my daily commute.
So
I see every day for the last few months, they give you what the phase of the moon is every day. It's lovely.
yeah. So let's see. So I was doing I was kind of multitasking yesterday. And just a minute here. Just a minute. And I was too lazy to come up on the hill, but I was fiddling around with my unistellar. So that's what Mars looked like to me. And you can see a little bit of the gray there. That's about it. And let's see, what else was I doing? No, not that one. This one. And this is what Jupiter looked like.
That's good.
So not very exciting, but it was something. And then I was kind of running inside my living room. Just a minute here. Where is this? Okay. So I was following this. I think this is what you're referring to, something that didn't happen, which was the Blue Origin launch. And it was supposed to go at about 10 p.m. last night, and around 20 after 12, they scrubbed it. So I've heard some chatter that they might try again in a couple of nights.
They're adjusting Thursday, January the 16th right now. One starting 3-hour time span starting at 1 a.m. Eastern.
Yes, and the Starship still hasn't flown yet. I think that might be in a day or two during the day. And the other thing, which I mentioned this at the meeting the other night, you see the blue ghost trajectory there. So that's still slated to go the day after tomorrow. But it will be some weeks before it reaches Mars. And there's also a Japanese probe going to, or sorry, I said Mars, I meant the moon. There's also a Japanese spacecraft going to the moon, but it is going to take months to get there. It's going up in a couple of days too. But anyway, with any luck, there will be some excitement ahead about lunar exploration. So that's kind of all I have to say. And just a little reminder for members of council, and I'll be sending this out after the meeting tonight. We have a council meeting next week, a week tomorrow. So, but I'll be sending out an agenda, and later on I'll send it out on the Sky News list to everybody who wants to see what council is up to.
But let's also go through other dates over the next month. AGM is on February
3rd.
Or 10.
10th.
Oh, sorry.
And we have to publish our agenda and the slate the proposed slate of the new board of directors on, I believe, the 27th, something like that.
Yeah, no later than I guess.
So that's our deadline for people who would like to be nominated for being on the board of directors. And in particular, we are looking for a VP2. A VP2 meaning that's code for in training to be president in a few years. And it's a wonderful thing to do for our community. So do consider if you're going to play with this organization for a few years, think about this seriously. And we have a treasurer who would prefer not to continue. He's certainly not going to continue for 2 years and would prefer not to have to do it this year. But if there's somebody who is so inclined, that would be awesome also. So that's happening over the next couple of weeks. We have to firm this up. The 10th is the AGM. And then that's the 10th. So 2 weeks after that is the 24th, is our dinner together. And when are we going to start a list on that? Do we wait for a while before we start worrying about that? I guess, Lauri?
No, I think we can start to take names, and I don't mind taking names if people want to email through to me at roche.lauri@gmail.com.
Okay,
Lauri with an
I still
I.
haven't put out the January newsletter, but let's make
Okay.
sure that we put something in for that. Okay,
Yeah.
so are there other announcements? Lauri, do you have announcements?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Of Chris? Chris, one of the things that I heard on the news yesterday was that Jeff Bezos had personally scrubbed the mission. And I wondered whether that was accurate or not. Do you have any insight into that?
No, I hadn't heard that. I mean, he was in the control room. He was kind of in the front row of controllers, and I suppose he could have if he wanted, but so I imagine he would be consulted, but I'm not sure whether it was a personal decision. I don't know very much about the decision because I mean, I was watching it, and the standard thing that you usually have is, when a problem comes up, this is a NASA launch, they hold the countdown. And then they don't restart it until they get their problem solved. This thing was kind of different because they start counting down, and 3 or 4 times in the evening, they got down to about 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden they were back to 35 minutes. And they were, at first they were very vague, but later on they were sort of saying, well, we've got a bit of an issue we're trying to deal with. And then they finally gave up. And I haven't seen that much today about the decision. But, while Bezos was probably part of the decision, I'm not sure whether he actually personally made it. Usually what you have is you have a flight director or some sort. They might have had a different title in this case, but it's usually it's usually them who make the decision. But I can
mean somebody who's qualified.
Yeah, somebody who's qualified.
That's right. That's right. And usually that person is almost like God, they make the decisions. But having said that, I would say that Bezos is fairly well versed in what's going on. I've seen him, talk about this. And there's you can find it on YouTube somewhere where he's leading a tour of the rocket plant, and he's obviously pretty familiar with the details of the rocket. So, while I don't think he should be the person who makes the decision, I think you could do a lot worse than him.
I agree. It does strike me as in fact, it would not inspire me if he were to make the decision himself rather than having someone delegated to do that. So he's smarter than that. So unlike another space mogul.
Are there any other announcements? And I think I'm looking at Lauri.
Hi there. I haven't really got too much. We put the tickets out today for the Star Party on the Star Party for January. And again, they were snapped up in just an absolute few minutes, and flurry of people online saying, "What do you mean they're all sold out in 5 minutes?" Like that kind of thing. So it's still extremely popular. It is a games night this week or this month. So it should be really quite fun. And I think probably Amy Archer might be contacting some of you to be on the RASC roster for the game. So just be prepared.
So what's the date?
25th.
Oh, it'll be the 20. Ooh, let me just have a look. Sorry. I haven't got my calendar sitting up here. It'll be the 25th.
Okay, and last year the team was Chris Gainor, Nathan Messelman-Hellner, and me. I know I cannot be on it.
Okay.
But please, if we get a request to field a team, it's jolly fun, and it's really you don't have to be very competitive to have fun with it. So I hope that we get a couple of people who will represent us this time. And I hope the NRC, I hope this time will actually have a team.
Yeah, I'm not sure again, because those guys are all over the place a little bit.
They're just scared.
They're just scared. That's right. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So that's on there, but if it I mean, all of you are invited up. As I say every time, if you'd like to volunteer, please let us know, and we'll make sure that you're on the list for volunteering. And you can come up without registration as long as we know that you are coming and that you're on the list as a volunteer. So that's really good. And we always love, if it's a nice night, the more the merrier for having telescopes out on the hill. And we've got several at the center that we can put out for people to use. And Reg, the 20-inch is still sitting there ready for you. Okay. Anytime you want to go up and use that, that's there for you. So the only other thing would be that we're just kind of in the planning stages for the Nova course. We're going to be meeting a little bit later and to get to nail down some dates and some days and what we want to cover. But I think, David, you said that you were starting to take a few people of interest and taking some names down for that. So that would be great.
Yeah, I've had a number of inquiries.
And I think we can.
Now it's not just us. I mean, we're going to open this up to the public.
Yes,
so
to the public as well. That's right. Yes. And I think we probably can take 25 people or so first. It'll be up at the center. It'll be up the center just because that's got, projectors and play and a planetarium we can play with at the same time, and telescopes that we can put out if the nights are nice. So a good spot to be able to do that. So we'll give you some more information maybe next Monday. We can give you some more information about that. So probably 5-6 weeks, something like that we'll put out. We're not quite sure exactly. We're going to still do some work on that. So just, I guess maybe number one is to get in touch with me if you would like to come for the dinner. It will be 6 o'clock, a 6 o'clock start. And then we'll be putting in our wishes for the dinner by 6:30 and kind of eating by 7. So lots of time to kind of have a bit of a chance to chat with people, and then a little bit of a program, and hopefully everything will be as nice as it was last year. So please come along. I think the meals are kind of anywhere between about 18 and 24, something like that, like just a regular regular cost at this point in time. And I have asked them about looking as for like maybe a dessert trays and tea and coffee to be that we can see whether, if the cost is okay, we can probably take that in. So we'll see. Where I've still got them. They haven't come back to me yet, so I need to do that. Any questions about that at all?
Does 4 Mile Pub, is it 4 Mile Pub?
Yes.
Yes.
Does it
4
have
Mile
dark
Pub.
matter?
Say that again.
Does it have dark matter?
I don't know. Does it have dark matter?
There's dark matter everywhere in this
Yeah,
universe.
but the thing is, if
everywhere.
you get $10 for a pint of dark matter, where else in the universe are you going to get it that cheap?
Yeah. I know that it wasn't dark matter where the moon underwater. Was that dark matter?
No, the
Yeah,
coin.
I'm not sure.
Coin makes it.
Oh, coin. Okay. Well, then maybe they do. We could ask. There you go.
It's okay. Don't worry.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
It seems to matter.
Okay, nice community. Anything else to bring up this evening? No photos? Nobody's been processing a photo? Well, oh, Susan has her hand up.
I wrote a little note in the chat meant for Chris Person. I just wanted you to know it was there. It's nothing to do with our group, but I didn't know how else to reach you.
We'll make sure that he sees the comment. Or do you want to say it out loud, or is it just for Chris?
Well, you could email it to me.
What? I can't. I don't have your email.
Membership@victoria.rasc.ca.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, well, this was wonderful. Kathryn, you stayed for the whole thing.
Stayed for the puns. I stayed for all the puns. Very good. Very interesting. Thank you all.
Yeah, in the chat, I offered to organize a stargazing party for the choir so they could see what they're singing about.
Oh,
but we should do that for maybe a clear night if there is one in February at Cattle Point. So maybe we could get a few telescopes down there, because there's how many in the choir?
About 60.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so even if we got 10%, that's still enough for warrants a few scopes.
For sure. I'd love that. Thank you. It'd be great.
That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, that'd be really fun.
And you'll sing, and maybe you could do a little, we could sing a little bit under the stars.
For sure.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
It would be amazing. Yeah, great.
Oh, I love this idea. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get some marshmallows and a propane tank.
Great idea. Thank you.
And with
Thank you,
that,
Kathryn.
we'll call this to an end. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. That's it. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.